Welcome back to Voices from the Freeport. My name is Bing. This is our third episode for a special series we're doing.
55-15-5, the FAB Anniversary Series.
55-15-5 refers to the 3 milestones we are celebrating this year here at the Freeport Area of Bataan, or FAB. 2024 marks the 55th, the 15th, and the 5th anniversaries of 3 very significant laws. Republic Act, or RA 5490 in 1969 provided for the establishment of the very first free trade zone in the Philippines here in Mariveles Town in Bataan. RA 9728 in 2009, meanwhile, created the authority of the Freeport Area of Bataan and renamed this place as FAB. And RA 11453 in 2019 amended that law to allow the establishment of FAB expansion areas across the entire province of Bataan and to also open the Freeport to more types of emerging industries. Among the industries now specifically allowed by law to operate inside the Freeport Area of Bataan is defense. This episode, we are talking about the defense industry with Ramon Garcia, Chairman, and JP Sarte, Vice President for Business Development of Asia Defense and Firepower Corporation, a company that envisions the Freeport Area of Bataan as a key hub for the defense industry, not just for the Philippines, but for the entire region as well. Tell us a bit about your company, ADFC.
ADFC was brought about very much in line with the industry in terms of consolidation and cooperation. When we want to scale, we've taken together both groups who have been in the industry 18 and 28 years respectively. So that's almost half a century approaching of experience from a Philippine side on the defense, taking us from the old mode of procurement and going into what we call, or like to call, Defense 2.0. Asia Defense and Armaments Corporation, which was actually formed before my publicly listed company. It's been around since the time of President Ramos. We've supplied a lot of the machines that help the Philippine military produce their ammunition. We brought in annealing ovens, weighing and gauging machines. We've also assisted, since our history, as the resource person for various administrations' congressional defense committees as well as Senate defense committees. We assisted also in the inputs on our Modernization Act for our military. So we believe in the Philippines. We know the pathway that Israel, France, the UK, the United States, Japan, and Indonesia and Korea have taken. And we believe that the Philippines has a fighting chance, especially with a much more enlightened and wise leadership that has taken these principles overseas and saying we're not merely a buyer, but we are now going to be a partner and producer, as well as a regional service center.
For our side, that would be the Firepower Defense Contractors Incorporated. So it's a company for 18 years, and just like Sir Ramon mentioned, we have essentially ventured into one, ADFC, so we can move forward with opportunities in the Defense 2.0. FDCI has quite been successful in the Defense 1.0 landscape, which is essentially procurement. So it's no difference from procuring a vehicle or a big ream of bond papers or a set of computers. So that's what we did well for the past 18 years, which is procuring munitions for the AFP. And we all do this under the procurement law. But now we realize, I mean, having worked with the AFP for quite some time, we realize that a lot of problems cannot be solved by just mere procurement. There should now be localization, which is right now, unfortunately, we don't have a real munitions manufacturing capability in the Philippines. So we look forward to those kinds of opportunities. Now that we have really partnered with big defense suppliers all over the world, and they know they can transfer the knowledge, the training, and the capabilities that have worked for them for so long. This can now be transferred locally here in the Philippines.
And I wanted to take off on what JP said, because when these two groups come together, again, even if it was Defense 1.0 JP, right? Regulatory compliance was paramount, or else you'll be disqualified.
Yes.
So it's very important. Moreover, I think our Philippine military has had a history of FMS or hand-me-downs from the US when the bases were here. So it was a learning curve and a learning prospect, whereas Unfortunately, the Philippines was actually ahead during the time of President Marcos the First, or the father of this president, because uniquely being, I guess, a war veteran and a military man, he had actually chosen Bataan as a defense industry. Even here in Fort Bonifacio, he had some things such as the Vectronics, which is for communications. He had set up 𝗍𝗲𝗀𝗃, which was based in Pasig, next to the Chemfield factory. So I grew up on the Chemfield side factory. Next door to us was 𝗍𝗲𝗃, which was producing M16s under license, right? So it's really unique that we've come full circle to President Marcos's, and yet we are now starting to go back to the vision of President Marcos I on being self-capable on it. So it's an interesting time. And more importantly, with the reputation, the international partners recognize who we are. We have passed security clearances. So it gives us a very good leg up because we have a strong track record, and the defense industry is a very small, regulated world on who the players are. Obviously, one of our other extended relationships who we also like to promote is ArmsCorps, because they've slugged it out, right? And we remain on friendly terms with them. So this isn't about a Filipino company versus a Filipino company. It's about building a Filipino industry of like-minded Filipino companies.
Interesting that you pointed out that you started off with procurement, which you call Defense 1.0, and right now you're moving into a higher level, Defense 2.0. So please tell me what these two are and then what the differences are.
Here's a very important point on Defense 1.0. Remember, when you started getting hand-me-downs from the U.S., you relied basically on the U.S. when the bases were here, right? For a lot of your defense equipment. President Marcos had tried to restart an industry ahead of all of the other Southeast Asian. But in Defense 1.0, as we developed, you are really just procuring. And here's the problem with procurement. Okay. One, our procurement law is being changed now because there's a problem. You're the only military broadcasting all the capabilities of what you're procuring. That's never done in the whole world, right? So technically, those that may be combatants already know what specs you're putting out in the procurement. Secondly, when you procure, obviously you'll have a lot of agents, right? Those with no assets, but merely good in complying and perhaps the right methodology to win bids, right? At the lowest price. The lowest price is skewed because you don't take into account the total cost of ownership. So sometimes you'll procure, I won't mention some of the items, but you cannot maintain thereafter. So what seemed cheap actually became very expensive because you basically junked it. The third one in Defense 1.0, which they didn't look at, was interoperability of your systems. So you'd buy systems from different lowest bidders, from different suppliers, different various relationships with the, let's say, procurement body, and influence in terms of what should be a product push rather than a strategic push for integration. We were buying systems that have no parts compatibility, no intercommunication, and that's Defense 1.0. We're glad that, one, we have a Secretary of Defense who knows what they're talking about. Number two, the geopolitical arena has forced us to become smarter, better, faster, right? And that's hopefully the way we'll be moving in Defense 2.0.
I'd just like to jump off also on how the procurement law essentially puts you in a box to just procure the goods. It's difficult to put in the life cycle support of, let's say, buying a whole gun system in a frigate. It will be difficult essentially for the Navy guys to foresee the next 5 or 10 years to fully repair that or to fully maintain that, because they cannot move around the procurement law. You always have to work within the procurement law. That's why we are quite excited with this administration that the foresight is there. They're really strong on changing this law, so that way we can start really being a proper Navy.
Defense is among the industries that is now allowed in the amended charter of the Freeport Area of Bataan since 2019. And you've already registered ADFC, Asia Defense and Firepower Corporation. So what are you as ADFC looking forward to doing at the Freeport?
Cluster in those to your strengths, right? Definitely the FAB can look at things such as close-in weapon systems, size of frigates, corvettes, considering the number of shipbuilders within the Bataan Peninsula. These are some of the things that they can build around, things that support the government arsenal. So these are all things that are there. Like, we've won a number of bids with the Japanese manufacturers for our optics for both the Navy and the Army. We've won bids together with Navy Ribs for the Navy. So these are some things that Bataan could excel in. Number two, the unique thing about Bataan with its 2019 amended act, it's the only economic zone that within its charter has it specifically stated, which makes a level of comfort. We can look at 𝗍𝗲, which was a wide-ranging, almost cover-all type of charter, but Bataan actually specified it from robotics to artificial intelligence to cybersecurity. So you can probably see that if you were a foreigner who wanted to invest in the Philippine defense industry, the fact that it was specifically mentioned there means that there is also a domain awareness of the Freeport Area of Bataan and the leaders of Bataan to support this industry early on, 2019, pre-COVID. I mean, that's foresight, right? Pre-geopolitical issues.
Yes.
So this is an interesting thing. So we're quite excited. We're hoping that the politicians in Bataan maintain their forward-looking with a great administrator also in Bataan. I think if they can adopt that focus, right? That actually the private sector is not someone to be regulated, but someone to be partnered with. And that the whole idea of a Freeport is an investment promotion agency. How do you make it grow? How can you make life easier for businesses? Then see how you can grow. Because I think most of them don't look at the Philippines, oh, I'm going to invest there because I want the Philippine business. No, you're going to look at the Philippines as a regional hub based on the ASEAN Free Trade Zone. And the fact that there's no other country within a constitutional law that has specified defense as a growth industry, it's the Philippines' 5-year lead before anybody else happens. We're kind of behind on defense. Korea came from nothing to the top 4, but I'm betting on the Philippines.
There have been moves that have been initiated by the government for us to take on a more self-reliant posture vis-a-vis defense. How can the private sector help move these initiatives forward?
Within the charter of the Freeport of Bataan, it has allowed even self-funding mechanisms from collective investment schemes like GTX, which is partially owned by the DFNN Group. These are actually new ways that actually can support a government budget, right? So this is what I call enablement by law. So not only can you perhaps use the government congressional budget every year, but by supporting and giving the foundation for defense companies to find alternative fundraising means, which Bataan allows, right, is inspired. It's truly inspired. So look at it. You basically built a system in Bataan for what we call an integrated cluster. Support from telecommunications, one of the biggest deployed bases of Starlink now. Globe coming in on fiber. Power surplus. A friendly, improving, less friction government drive and a vision to stake out a leadership in the defense industry, right? So this is a critical thing. The ability to expand throughout the province, subject to laws of the amended charter. A lot of things are there. I would just hope that some of the things that Bataan cannot control, which are things like registration with SEC, registration with BIR, perhaps this can be expanded to become a much easier one-stop shop. You've already got the foundation there, and let private sector do what they do best. Some of the things that we're doing, they had a consideration of whether they would put their support center in Malaysia, their support center in Indonesia, right? Some of them have facilities in Thailand. Malaysia has 173 defense companies. The last I checked, with the Secretary of Defense, there are less than 5 that are going concern defense companies in the Philippines, right? So Bataan could really be that accelerator for this industry. And we hope that it won't be limited to Bataan because, like I said, this isn't about a Philippine versus Philippines. It's about how the Filipinos can work together so we can compete globally.
What do we need from Filipino private sector companies?
Remove the predatory or crab mentality. It's not us versus others, right? It's really how can we work as Filipinos together? Because our company can't do everything, right? So we call other Filipino companies to work with us. Even Beretta, one of the oldest gun manufacturers, has about 38 subcontractors all within the same region, right? Now our optics partners have 32 sub-partners in their plant in Cebu, and they intend to bring those same subcontractors to Bataan. So, when you build a Boeing plane or Airbus, you're talking about thousands of subcontractors, right? So obviously there's a lot on the table for everybody to be part of, and the enemy is out there. Now we're lucky in a sense that our systems are installed already in Malaysia, Indonesia, and so forth. With the law of both the Freeport Area of Bataan, with the Modernization Act, with this new self-defense reliancy program law that hopefully will come into fruition soon, like I said, we're not having to live and die on Philippine business, right? So what happens is that means we'll be building skill set. We have online learning platforms. Our partner has agreed to transfer intellectual property to the Philippine government, as well as know-how, and to put people on the ground who would train our other people on the ground. So we're actually moving up the value chain. And the more we support this, the better we'll get. What we do need help on from the government side is our industries will need a lot of engineers. We need a lot of engineers. We'll need a lot of software guys. Remember, all the IT that DFNN uses probably originated from military defense technologies, right? Which is my other company. And yet, just a reminder, my defense company predated DFNN. So you can probably understand why we had a domain knowledge in terms of the roadmap of what technologies were coming down the line. For example, Waze was invented by intelligence officers of the Israeli military and commercialized it. Your cell phone was a derivative of the Harris radios. Your microwave was for a sideline on telecommunications for the military. So you can see that there is a very close synergy between defense companies as well as technology companies. If you go to Austin, which is the new Silicon Valley, you'll find in their venture cap area called Capital Factory, or you go to South by Southwest, and you'll see the Defense Advanced Research Program of America has one whole floor at the Capital Factory for incubating new defense technologies. Yes. Something that Bataan should think about. I love this mega city that is Metro Manila. Greater Metro Manila is already 32 million people day by day. But you know what? There's no defense company that should be incubated in Metro Manila. Okay? With Starlink anywhere, right? Most of these things are not in Tel Aviv either. They're in Haifa of Israel. They're in Haiphong for Vietnam, right? They're in Nottingham and Manchester for the UK. They're in Texas, Silicon Valley, old days, not in Washington, D.C. and New York. So the first thing is have a ability to have a lifestyle change, maybe even a better quality of life. Move out of Metro Manila, because what we need are those that are in asymmetrical thinking of defense. Today, you're not only talking about missile guidance systems and so forth. You're really talking about cybersecurity. You're talking about influencing and mindset using social media. These also should be taken into a defense side. Number two, food security, water security. Think of different ways that future wars could be fought, right? Think about space technologies. So this is something, if you ask me, forecasting going down, but these can be in parallel with what we need, like some of the stuff that JP is planning and ADFC is planning on the close-in weapon system, which we've already announced. The Philippine government is aware that we're willing to transfer the technology. The Philippine government is aware that we're also willing to make Bataan the central service for Southeast Asia because of the amended Freeport Act. So it's really the call of the Philippines now. This is something that the UAE has been doing. This is something that Saudi Arabia has been doing. And they have incubated their own defense company.
Should talent be a cause for concern?
Not the way you have done it, right? If you look at the law, you're able to bring in the talent. And those talent can now train the trainers here. Make their ease of getting a resident working visa easy. Look at them as your mentors. When Singapore went first after being removed from the Federation of Malaysia, they made it easy for a group of 10 Israelis to help them build their military. Think back that that's the right formula. There's no magic bullet that we can think of. It's been done before. Let's repeat it, but let's accelerate it.
we have this a naval shipbuilder who actually visited Freeport Area of Bataan, and he was really surprised because a lot of really good naval architects are women, and he's so forward-looking because he has also this shipbuilding opportunity in the Middle East, and he has a set of he calls Filipino engineer friends that he can just call, and if they want to come back, they can start a center of excellence for naval architect here. And he came to that Freeport Area of Bataan thinking that, okay, this Bataan can only repair ships. But after going around the ecosystem, he realized ships, naval ships, warships can actually be built there. And on the question of talent, there's no shortage of talent. They just need a proper training, and these foreign corporations are committed to locating there and establishing centers of excellence.
At some point, do you see the Philippines being a hub, perhaps even exporting defense-related products and services?
Well, for me, this is called BPO 2.0. I remember when we first helped the rules for the BPO industry and everybody was laughing how we could compete with India. That's now a $32 billion business a year, contributing what? 3 to 7% of our GDP, depending on which study, right? I think we can compete. Just help us compete, enable us to compete on a regulatory compliance and a business-friendly basis. The law is there. If there are any amendments, we're glad that you'll listen to it. But that's really where it starts. It starts with the government recognizing we want to enter this market. You know, the same way that Filipino seafarers control what? Over 87% of all maritime manning and crewing, your tourism, Disney. I mean, how many hotels do not have Filipinos? If we really set our mind to it and enable it, right? In a sense, even POEA was an enabler, Department of Migrant Workers. This is a niche because of its very nature of being highly regulated, and because we put in our law that the Philippines can compete. Again, defense is not for everybody because there are a lot of compliance issues. So for maybe a Philippine conglomerate who worries about their international partners, it's not for everyone, right? It's a very unique skill set, very unique talents from up all the way down to below, and your organization has to have that history and mistakes and learnings that you've done in what we've done in over close, like I said, to half a century. So the most important part, I think, is that we are globally known. We're not just a Philippine company that, we do it amongst ourselves. The international players know who we are, so that's quite interesting. The government regulatory body that exports or constricts defense-related products of Japan know who we are, right? The UK, same thing. Historically, our group or related parties brought in the original Simbas, which to this date, which were brought in during the time President Ramos, are still working. So, these are some of our experiences. We've been keeping quiet because obviously sometimes during those early days, you didn't really know which is the purview. It was separate for DTI. Is this a priority investment thing? There was no FAB law, so government arsenal would do its own thing. Are you getting military? Are you going PNP clearances? We had to do these disparate things. It's the first time the law has really come together synergistically, both on a national as well as a local level.
Surprise me with some of the things that we're actually doing in defense right now or in recent memory or even the past few decades.
We have, but it's going to be hidden. It starts with the OFWs. Since we deal with OFWs in another industry of ours, I really feel bad when you go to a military defense show in the Middle East and you see the new UAE companies and you go and you see the leaders, but actually all their engineers, all their factory are Filipinos. So the whole idea is if we can find a way to bring back this experienced talent to support us in the Philippine defense industry, it's very good. So it's not that we haven't been there. We've been there on an individual basis, but incorporated throughout other companies. Go to Airbus in Singapore. When they service your helicopter, I guarantee you 80% of the engineers are Filipinos. Imagine that, maintaining your engines, painting, body repair, certification. Go to Textron Asia. I would say 25% are Filipinos. So collectively and hidden, there is an innate talent there. It's just they're contributing to other people's defense industry, not our own. Does that kind of make you feel bad? But hopefully with this new Defense 2.0, as JP says, perhaps we can bring it back.
And that was a conversation with Ramon Garcia, Chairman, and JP Sarte, Vice President for Business Development of Asia Defense and Firepower Corporation. Tune in again next episode for more of 55-15-5, the FAB Anniversary Series. This has been 𝗍𝗶𝗀𝗀 for Voices from the Freeport.